Hello, dear passengers. This is your captain speaking, and we are about to take off for another episode of Adventurina. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of hopefully your favorite podcast, Adventurina. No matter if you're driving from work or back from work, sitting home chilling or being outside for a walk, thank you for stopping by and deciding to spend some time with your captain. If you're new to the show, welcome, and don't forget to hit subscribe. It's been a while since my last solo episode. As you guys know, the last couple of episodes I had some amazing fellow travelers joining me. We kicked off the guest season with Giovanna Silvestri, an amazing, inspiring solo traveler whose book is now available on Amazon, so go check it out. And we kept the ball rolling with another great adventurer who's also a travel advisor, Summer Henderson. Quick reminder that Summer is organizing her first group trip this September to Bali, Indonesia. So if you're someone who's tired of waiting for other people or for the right plan, you should go check it out. If you haven't listened to these guest episodes, I highly encourage you to do so, as they both are pretty good and with no doubt became my audience favorites very quickly. So, where do I start from? I'll kick off this episode with an update on my trips and sharing my first cruise experience, which was also something I got a lot of questions about over the last month. As you guys know, last month I celebrated my birthday and I stayed true to myself and my traditions by having a trip to acknowledge this great day when my wanderlusting ass got born. The destination was Canada, but instead of, going by plane, we decided it was finally time for a cruise. We had never been on a cruise before, and for me specifically, the destination didn't matter. I just wanted to experience, being on a ship for so long and seeing how everything works. Well, let's be honest. I did care where we were going to end up because, my planning obsession was ready to put together an itinerary for a new place. I did have Canada in mind for my birthday. I remember quickly thinking about it and then deciding it was too close to me to consider it a good birthday destination. If I was gonna go, I at least wanted to experience something cool on the way, so a cruise was the right choice. So I started doing what I do best. I opened Google and dove into the depths of the internet, trying to gather enough feedback for, different cruise lines, while also looking for deals because, let's be honest, if it's not a deal, I don't want it. Like, if you guys see me doing something fancy, you should know I got a deal because God knows I am vibing with tons of money spent on things like accommodation. Like, if I end up somewhere fancy, I either got a deal or it was once in a lifetime experience, or both. Anyway, I found this deal from Royal Caribbean, which is not a paid advertising, but hey, Royal Caribbean, I've been posting about your biggest ship for the last month, so you better hit me up for a collab, okay? So anyway, I found this great deal, way better than I expected, considering I didn't even know what to expect as I was a first timer, but it sounded very cheap to me. The route was 5 nights from Los Angeles, California to Vancouver, Canada, with 2 ports in between, San Francisco, California, and Victoria, British Columbia in Canada. As you guys know, I live in San Francisco, so I didn't care about that port at all. Like, I only cared about the ship experience and the Canada part. After arriving in Vancouver with the cruise ship, we were going to stay there for a few days. In general, I was very interested in the process of boarding and checking in for the ship. As something new, I was a little anxious and, kept thinking if we had all the documents, if we did everything we were supposed to do before departing. The usual travel scaries for someone who likes to be in control. We flew from San Francisco to Los Angeles and arrived early in the day despite our boarding starting hours later. We wanted to have enough time to leave the airport and go down to San Pedro where the ships are leaving from. The commute turned out to be very easy and fast, but I'm glad we still arrived early and waited. For me, that's always better than, barely making it last moment, which I've shared does not do well for my mental well-being. And now that I'm talking about this, I actually want to make a pause from my cruise/Canada story, which I had just started. And I want to talk about this trend that I've been seeing over the last 2 months on Instagram. You guys have probably seen some videos where people test this airport theory, which is pretty much travelers trying to arrive at the airport about 15 minutes before their boarding time or 15 minutes before their departure. The goal from what these people share is to minimize the waiting time for people who have checked in online in advance and people who are traveling with a carry-on only. Honestly, just talking about this gives me anxiety. Like, first, for someone to test that theory, you gotta know your city and your airport pretty damn well. Like, second, you gotta, to some extent, not care if you're going to miss your flight, because let's be honest, one train down from the subway or any delay at the highway or a main road and you're staying home. Like, there are some people who for sure live super close to the airport they fly from and they can somehow be sure that they will make it on time, but the commute to the airport is not the only thing for you to overcome. You still have to go through security. You may even have clear or TSA pre-check and still be delayed. It's sometimes the lines for those two are longer than the regular line. Like, on top of that, everything can happen. There might be a last moment change of your gate or your terminal even, like it has happened to me, and you won't have time for reaction because you are testing a theory. Like, I don't know. What's better after all, to leave at the last moment and worry on the way there, counting every second and estimating if you're gonna make it on time, or leaving early and taking your time to go through every step unbothered? Of course, this doesn't include the times when something really happens and you have to leave late, not by choice. I think this theory may have worked for some people, mostly people who live very close to the airport, as I said, but also maybe it worked once. Like, just because you managed to do it once and recorded it doesn't guarantee you that every time will be like this. I think this trend puts the wrong idea into the heads of either less experienced travelers or people who have not even traveled by plane at all. And yes, there are a lot of people still who have not traveled by plane. And if I had never been on a plane and I see that shit, a part of me would be like, oh, so I guess I can leave 1 hour later and, I'll be fine. Look at this guy. He managed to do it. Well, sorry to break it to you, but this guy maybe got lucky or, had tried it few times before he managed to do it, or maybe didn't even do it and posted the opposite just to get views on Instagram. I've seen it before. Also, not sure if anyone out there is even remotely thinking of the people who are already on the plane, impatiently waiting to take off, waiting for someone who's boarding at the last moment. Like, it's not fair for them to be responsible and to make it on time while someone else is testing an Instagram theory, I can personally remember 2 cases where I was at the airport hours in advance and I still was about to miss my flights. First time, I was flying from Boston to London and I got at the airport more than 4 hours earlier. I was there way too early. I knew it. I was sitting, browsing on my laptop, patiently waiting for the check-in to open so I can toss my 2 suitcases and, get rid of 70 plus pounds weight. I was waiting and waiting and waiting, and goddamn Virgin Atlantic was not opening. So I started to get a little nervous and I decided to check my ticket, and what do I see? My flight was going to be operated by Delta Airlines, which is a partner airline of Virgin. So they do combined flights, and my reservation said Virgin, but under, with very small letters, you could see operated by Delta. What does it mean? I was at the wrong register and I was at the wrong terminal. So my heart sank down my feet. My eyes were going left and right, on the flight info screen, trying to find the flight number. And of course, once I found it, I immediately just left the gate and to the new terminal. It was already maybe an hour before my flight, something like this. I was at the airport, but I felt like I was freaking far away. Like, knowing how busy security gets most of the time at this airport, knowing how I have to check my bags before I even go through security, and knowing how big this airport is just made me instantly panic. And of course, being by myself doesn't help at all. Like, I immediately started running towards the closest security guard and asked for directions. She said it was just 15 minutes away by walking. Just 15 minutes. Like, 15 minutes? What do you mean? Like, the goddamn dude from Instagram got at the airport 15 minutes before his flight and he still made it. Like, should I just tell her that? Well, that was back in 2018, so the airport theory wasn't even invented yet, But anyway, 15 minutes of walk are nothing if I'm in San Francisco strolling down the street going to Dolores Park. But when you have limited time and when you also drag a 50-pound suitcase and a 25-pound carry-on while having a laptop bag and a backpack, 15 minutes feel like an hour. And I say this with all the seriousness. I was pulling my 70 plus pounds while having another probably 40 on me. I felt like I was competing in, what was this reality show, Survivor? Like, no, seriously, it was horrible. Like, I was running as fast as I could with a shit ton of stuff on me, and I was exhausted, like sweating and barely able to take a breath. For a brief second, I remember I did consider just sitting on the floor and start crying, like accepting my destiny and missing my flight. But my poor ass couldn't afford another flight. Like, I was going back home to Bulgaria after a summer of being an intern in San Francisco. I had money saved exactly for one trip to Santorini in Greece and to pay back my friend who lended me cash to cover my ridiculously expensive deposit and first month in my dorm room in San Francisco. In other words, I was broke and couldn't afford sitting on the floor and crying. I had to put myself together and drag my shit to the right terminal and gate. I remember I was running out of breath. I remember I was sweating and I could feel the sweat dripping down my body, not in a sexy way. So somehow I made it, checked my luggage, and ran through security and arrived at my gate. I remember I got there literally minutes before the boarding started, and I just lay down on the floor in front of everyone, in front of the whole line, giving zero fucks about how it looks and how dirty it is, because I was just exhausted. And of course, laying down on the floor at the airport is not something that usually people would stare at you for, but people were staring at me and I couldn't understand why. Like, I tried to reach my bag where I had some M&Ms. What do I see? My white shirt having huge pink spots on both my boobs, looking like I was producing a strawberry milk, if you know what I mean. I was like, where the hell is this coming from? Well, with all the running and sweating, my pink bra and the shitty fabric it was made of covered my snow white shirt exactly where I was sweating the most. You get the idea. Well, until today, I have never got to experience anything like that, and I always joke that I was so much in a rush back then that my t-shirt just turned pink. Anyway, that was example number 1. How you can be at the airport very early and still experience a mini heart attack. And while I admit part of the reason was me not being careful enough with reading my itinerary, the second time I remained innocent. I was on my way to the East Coast, flying from San Francisco to New York to spend the holidays with my friends there. I was ready on time, calling my Uber, and guess what? That shit was loading and loading and loading, and there were no drivers available. It was a little before the holidays, so everywhere was crazy or understaffed. I waited for so long until I got a car, and then arrived at the airport just to see an insane line for both luggage and security. I was able to quickly drop my suitcase, but the security line was crazy. Like, I think that's one of the longest times I have waited on that line, and I didn't have Clear at the time. As I mentioned, it was also mid-December, so I remember feeling super anxious and doing my math inside my head. If I had to buy a new ticket, I was already seeing how I was missing my flight. And thank God I know San Francisco International Airport very well. I was able to run as fast as possible once I passed security. So I made it on time, but with what price? Feeling like shit and already being sweaty and dirty despite taking a shower less than 2 hours ago. Like, my trip was off to a nerve-wracking start and I already couldn't wait to shower. For me, these two things are enough to never want to try the airport theory. Like, I like being in control too much to play that game. If you want to try it, go for it, my friend. But for me, that's a hard pass. I like exactly the opposite. Arriving early, knowing I have plenty of time, to catch up with some messages and emails, to be on my phone, to maybe watch the sunrise from the gate, grab a coffee, message friends and family. I wouldn't trade that for staying home later and leaving at the last moment, because we're not actually getting any time back. It's not time saved, it's time spent in worry and rush, so it completely makes the final result not worth it to me. I like having enough time to, react if something unpredictable happens. The subway breaks down, which happens often in the Bay Area. There are no Ubers or Lyfts available, as in my case. There's, an accident on the road or nothing is moving. My flight, got moved last minute. I can keep going. Like, you are advised to arrive at the airport at a certain time before your departure for a reason. What will happen if everyone was testing the airport theory? Like, everyone was going to be late and no one would make it on time. And I bet then people would be like, damn, like, why did everyone leave so late? Like, only I was supposed to do it. And, without them, I was going to arrive on time. yes, without them. But if they were more than you, your theory kind of goes to hell. So for everyone out there who is tempted to try this, I would say either make sure you know your stuff very well and you are super confident, due to your travel experience, or do it when you're going somewhere super close with a cheap ticket and you're not in a rush to anywhere. If you're doing it for the pure experiment, do it with the cheapest flight to sacrifice. Otherwise, you're taking a risk that, in my opinion, is not worth it. But who am I to even have an opinion? I can't even finish my Canada story that I completely ditched about 20 minutes ago. So, okay, back to the ship. Is that what we were talking about? So, as I was saying 20 minutes ago, I was very interested to see how things happen, on the ship. I wanted to see all the places such as movie theaters, casinos, restaurants, shops. I wanted to see this sailing town. I really liked it, and I especially loved our stateroom. So on cruise ships, rooms are called staterooms. It's because of some historical, luxurious, land-based apartment terms or something. I didn't know it either. So our stateroom had everything you would need for 6 days cruise adventure. A nice big bed, a closet, a normal sized bathroom, small living room area, and the best part, a balcony. As someone who adores being around water and swears by the beach, I knew that was going to be the best part for me, just being able to stare at the water anytime and, sitting outside reading my book. That was just amazing. Also, waking up and seeing the water, happiness. So while you're on the cruise, there is an app that provides all information about entertainment, dining, time and port, whatever you can think of. I love this app because with so much happening at the same time, it was going to be impossible to remember everything and, have proper notes of where to go and when. The app allows you to add the events and activities you are interested in and puts them on your ship calendar. So every morning when you wake up, you can, see what you have planned for the day. You also receive notifications and reminders of things that are starting soon, which gives you time to arrive at the right spot because you can imagine this is a big ass ship and, walking around takes a while. Even after 6 days on that thing, we didn't see certain places that were described in the itinerary or shown on the map. With so many things to do and places to be, I guess it was just very hard to see every part of the ship. There were sport activities all day long, such as morning stretches, Pilates, yoga, basketball competitions, mini golf, and more and more. The entertainment was on a very high level, in my opinion. Aside from the daily dance parties and theme parties, there was a theater with, I believe, 400 people capacity that had different performances every evening, literally musicals with such talented actors and singers that I could tell how strict the selection was. There were trivia games, pool parties with pool activities, movie screenings, silent disco parties, nightclubs, you name it. It had it all, literally. I gotta say, one of the most interesting things for me was the farewell party with the captain and the cruise ship director, where the crew was presented with all the flags from the countries they come from. I believe the director mentioned that on our ship, there were 2,200 guests, with 800 crew members from 80 countries, which is a huge number. Not only was the crew such a high number, but every single one of them that we got to interact with was just awesome and left such great impression on us. Everyone, from the person who took our photo when we boarded the ship, through all the servers and restaurant workers, to the entertaining crew and our amazing housekeeper, Lynn. Oh my God, everyone was just so nice and helpful. And this absolutely was a huge part of our experience. For the days we spent sailing, we of course got very familiar with the ship, already knew where and how to go. For myself, as a first-time cruiser, is that a thing, cruiser? I would say I liked it a lot, especially with, all the water views and endless horizons. I'm always fascinated by views like this. I just know that after the 4th day, I was like, get me out of here. Not in a desperate way, but I needed to walk out of that thing. I guess I just missed the actual exploring part that my trips come with. And I'm just not used to be traveling but sitting in one place, if that makes sense. It's okay, I'm on a trip, I'm at a new place, but I'm not doing anything. I'm staying inside and I'm not leaving the hotel, Well, I'm not leaving the hotel because it's not a hotel, it's a ship and it's not recommended to leave, if you know what I mean. But The itinerary, if any, during the cruise was so light that I felt like I wasn't using my time properly. It kind of messed up with my mind. I felt very, very chilled, which is a reason a lot of people go on cruises, but it was too chilled for me. I was bored relaxing all the time, you know what I mean? Like chilling in my room in the middle of the day, I was like, what is this? When has that happened? Never is the answer. Even when I have been to like all-inclusive hotels in the past purely for the purpose of chilling, I just have not been able to stay in. So I needed something to happen. I needed to feel like I'm traveling, not just relaxing, if that makes sense. I guess I'm just not one of these people who can relax, be around the pool, and just let the day go like this. I sometimes hate that for myself, but hey, that's who I am. So honestly, for me, it was kind of a challenge to stay still. I would say I like being on a cruise, but I wouldn't do it more than once a year or maybe two. No offense if you like going on cruises. I'm not shitting on the experience or anything, just sharing that as much as I loved it, it's not something I see myself doing that often, unless it's maybe a party cruise with like a lot of sport activities like ziplining and stuff like this. I know there are ships like that, maybe next time. So on the 5th day, we arrived in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. I was so excited to get off that ship and just, explore the town. I had, of course, a list of places to visit there. And I had, of course, organized them in certain order so we could just see as many as possible for the hours we had before we were going to sail to Vancouver. Just after a little bit of walking, I already knew I liked this place. It was small and beautiful, super walkable and clean. People were extremely nice. And it made me feel like I was on Cape Cod in Massachusetts, where I first landed in the US 13 years ago. People were just so kind. Victoria really impressed me with all the beauty and historic landmarks, along with the parks and water taxis. It was just so cool. It's the perfect one-day trip, and if anyone is going, get my one-day guide on Instagram. I promise you'll see so much for such a short time. Weather was super nice on top of everything, so the day just couldn't get better. I got my souvenirs, and we even got to visit a beach that we didn't know existed. So somehow we ended up there. It was super small but nice beach, very close to the cruise ship port, and we got to watch the sunset on our way back to the ship. It was just perfect. The next day, next and last on the cruise part of the trip, we arrived in Vancouver and we had to say goodbye to our amazing housekeeper, Lynn, and to our cozy stateroom. But we were excited. Like, we were gonna miss hanging around the deck for sure, like talking to the crew, dancing with strangers. But despite that, I was so ready to dive into Vancouver. Our accommodation was at a very convenient place in downtown, which absolutely contributed to seeing so many things for the amount of days we stayed. We did not waste almost any time with transportation because everything was close and we were able to walk for 80% of the time. I have put together a list with the places worth visiting when, in Vancouver for the first time. So go on Instagram and check my Vancouver post. It's all there. I gotta say, I really like Vancouver. I shared in a previous episode that for some reason I couldn't get excited for the Canada part of my birthday trip because I was just thinking about the cruise part. And a few days before we went on our vacation, some friends just shared with us that they went to Vancouver last year, same time, and they absolutely loved it. So that's what I guess finally made me excited. And when we arrived, I could tell that I would like the city. It reminded me of Seattle in many ways, and I love Seattle. So from everything we saw and did in Vancouver, observation decks, historic landmarks, farmers markets, waterfront, I love the most the bike ride around Stanley Park. 1,000% yes, yes, yes. As someone who lives in San Francisco, where riding a bike on the Golden Gate Bridge is a must and one of the most iconic things you can do, I really gotta say this bike route was absolutely phenomenal. There are a few very popular bike routes in Vancouver, but this specific one is called Seawall and it's about 6 miles or 9 kilometers. It's easy to bike it in my opinion, almost no hills and ups. Plus, you can get an electric bike, which we did, but the beauty, the views, like I would walk that shit if I had a whole day. Like there is almost no car traffic at all at the trail. It's one way, so you don't have to worry about crashing into someone. The thing that you should worry about though is you crashing by yourself while staring at the amazing views and trying to hold the road with your bike. I was about to fall down, I don't know, maybe a few times because I was trying, of course, to take videos while also pedaling like crazy trying to catch up. If you have a GoPro, get that thing on your helmet because you have to wear a helmet, please do. And forget about taking videos like any other way. We had our GoPro, but because we are very smart, we forgot the mounting part at the hotel and couldn't attach it to the helmet. Yes, when I said smart, I meant morons. I would also highly recommend the Flyover Canada experience. Flyover is an immersive flying ride where you are virtually taken to different places in Canada that kind of showcase the beauty of the country. There are sights, sounds, and stories, and it really feels like you are physically there. And thanks to all the like movement and temperature change and even like raindrops that you get to feel on your face at some point, you really feel like you're there. I've done it in Chicago and I had so much fun. I even screamed. Remember, I grabbed a stranger's hand, and this time I knew what to expect, so I didn't embarrass myself. The third thing that I would definitely recommend is going to North Vancouver and visiting Capilano Suspension Bridge. It's a tourist attraction that immediately made my Vancouver list when I saw it on the internet while researching. It looked pretty cool and I wanted to see it live and walk on it. I had half a day set aside just to check it out. And on our first day in Vancouver, we ran into some people from Southern California and started talking. They were staying with their Canadian friends in Vancouver, so, we were excited to talk to some locals. And of course, soon we were just already swapping ideas about what to see while in the city. They started listing places that I already had on my list, and I was super proud that, I did my homework, obviously. But when I mentioned Capilano, they politely disagreed. Like the guy said, we should skip it because it's just a bridge. And I usually take local recommendations seriously. After all, they should know better. But also, after all, they are locals. So they're pretty much tired of everything in their area, probably. The guy said it wasn't worth it going to the bridge because there was nothing to see. And if we still wanted to go, an hour max should be enough, as there was no need for more, he said. I was honestly surprised because I was looking forward to that experience, and hearing from a local who I thought was going to encourage us to go, that we shouldn't, pretty much, really shocked me. We didn't have tickets purchased at the time, and I was unsure of how to get there in general. And if I have to be honest, like a little doubt started growing inside of me. Like, should we go or not? Like, are we going to waste time? Is this guy right? Should I just not bother wasting time to, check how to get there? But I also trust my gut, and if I really want to see something, I go for it, no matter what people tell me. So we found a free shuttle from a place less than 10 minutes away from our hotel, and we were able to get to Capilano in no time, also crossing the Lions Gate Bridge, which we were gonna miss if it wasn't for this plan. And Capilano Suspension Bridge Park turned out to be such a great surprise. It's definitely not just a bridge, it's an entire experience. It's a whole park with multiple attractions, trails, treetop walks, climbing paths, and pretty views. There's also a cliff walk, a smaller bridge that is hanging off the cliffs and you have to pass in order to proceed with the trail. It was way longer and way more exciting than I expected. So we literally spent a few hours exploring the whole park, and it was so refreshing just to be surrounded by nature while still so close to Vancouver downtown. And honestly, just thinking we could have missed it if we had listened to that guy just annoys me a little bit. Here's the moral of the story. We are all different. We like different things. Must see and must do is sometimes subjective. Of course, I'm talking about these places that didn't make it to the concrete must-sees and do's, you know what I mean? You can go to Rome and not see the Colosseum. You can't come to San Francisco and not see the Golden Gate Bridge. You can go to New York and not see the Statue of Liberty. You get the point. But aside from the iconic places, there are many other things that will be described as a must-do from some people and as just a bridge from others. And here's when you have to listen to your gut. If you want to see something, go and see it. Find out with your own eyes if the people who are convincing you not to go were right. I wouldn't consider that a waste of time. You already would, have an expectation of being disappointed to some extent because people put the idea in your head. And if it really sucks, at least and you're not gonna wonder were they right or not. And also take one of these funny videos with expectations and reality, that would cheer you up a little bit for sure. We gotta find a way to put humor in everything, right? Speaking of humor, I want to dedicate the last few minutes of this episode to share some answers I received after asking my audience different travel questions. So let's get into it. So first question I asked was, what's your must-have item that you never travel without? I have some normal answers as a deodorant, a GoPro, noise-canceling headphones, a drone, passport, credit card, but my top ones. My husband, so I can turn my brain off. Love it. Second winner, we have my vibrator. Love that honesty. It's Adventurina, it's a safe space. We got you, girl or boy. Second question was, what's the most awkward situation you found yourself in while abroad? Put diesel in the car instead of gas and got stuck on a highway in Ireland at 11 p.m. 2 hours away from my hotel. I know exactly who that is. I have heard the story from the source, but thanks for sharing. We appreciate it. Spoiler, everything ended well. One more interesting answer that I laughed a lot at. I talked to a guy while being by myself abroad in a coffee shop. He was nice but kind of immature, and I didn't want to hang out with him. I lied to him that I was leaving later the same day just so I had an excuse, but 2 days later, we met in the hallway, both on our way to the shared bathroom. The fucker was staying at the same hostel. I can kind of imagine both faces, like the guy seeing the girl being like, what the hell, I thought you left, and the girl being like, where do I know you from? This is actually hilarious. I actually need to know the end of the story because that's all that the person submitted, so can you please report? For the next episode, let's hear the end. And one more interesting submission, I went on a tour with a few people in Egypt and started chatting with a gentleman in his 60s probably. I mentioned that I had visited another country before Egypt and he asked me if I liked it. It's not clear which country though. My experience in that country, which I'm not gonna mention, was pretty bad due to a few things happening there, and that left me with a sour taste. I started venting out as I had just waited for someone to ask me, saying how bad everything was and how I would never go back to that country. The guy looked at me and said, whoa, you really hate my country. Yeah, that's freaking awkward. I can see it, yeah. I was super embarrassed and I didn't know how to get out of the situation. Honestly, you can't get out of the situation. There is nothing you can say to make this better. I didn't know how to get out of the situation, started rambling, but I had already said what I said. The worst part was that the tour was 2 days and we got to sit next to each other for the rest of the time without saying a word. It was literally painful. In my defense, the guy didn't have any signs of what nationality he was, so I couldn't prevent it. I just love how you say without asking, in my defense, because, the first thing everyone would ask would be like, couldn't you just at least say which continent this guy is from? I don't know, but I love it. And hey, it's at least now a good story, right? Just like we talked with Summer Henderson in my last episode, if there are no messed up plans while traveling, what are you gonna tell after? What kind of stories are you gonna have? And yeah, at the moment it feels awkward and it's embarrassing, but later on you laugh at these stories. And with that said, thank you guys so much for listening and watching. As you now know, Adventurina is available on YouTube as well. And don't forget to hit subscribe. I'm excited to hear more from you, to receive new answers, new stories, new submissions. Keep sending because I'll keep sharing with you guys so we can keep laughing. Until next episode, which is landing shortly. Until then, bon voyage!